What's up, everybody? We are back live Tuesday MLB DFS picks, lineup advice, strategy, live Q&A. FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo, April 19th against the Tuesday main slate MLB DFS fantasy baseball. You name it, we're here. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Welcome to all of you out there. Thanks for tuning in. I'm with SwaglordKen, who makes rare appearances on the show. And I believe his last appearance was on the Super Bowl. We broke down small field strategy because Ken has been absolutely destroying small fields. And Ken, right before we went live, he said, "Yeah, I've been running hot." And it's like, "Yeah, you've won the monster 2 or 3 times so far on FanDuel this season." What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, not too bad. It's been a good year so far, so I'm looking to keep it going, and hopefully we can win some money today.
Absolutely. So what we plan to do, we'll be here for about 30 minutes until 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll break down tonight's main slate, FanDuel, DraftKings. We'll talk about some prop bets along the way, maybe some prize picks. You see the banner there above the screen. 100% deposit match bonus if you use code OCCUPY. The link is in the description below. So a lot of the stuff we talk about here can be applied over there. Get a different form of DFS, so go check that out as well. T Nasty is in the chat. What's up? If you guys have questions over the next 30 minutes or so, go ahead and throw them in the chat. We'll stop what we're doing. We'll answer your question. If it's about specific players tonight, specific stacks, or just general baseball DFS strategy, we'll happily help you out. So Ken, I'm looking tonight, and so far this season we've had a few of these types of slates, but they've mostly been smaller slates. But it's a monster tonight with 11 games on tap. I have the DraftKings screen up here. So 11 games tonight. What's your first thought when you see this many games on a slate?
That's gonna be tough, and whoever you stack probably won't get there. But I think the sweet spot is usually maybe 6 or 7 games. So this will require a lot of teams are gonna be able to get there. So it's kind of choose and kind of mix and match what teams you like there tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways you can go. And if we look at, I'm going to pull up our stack dashboard here really quickly. OccupyFantasy.com, Occupy model ranks every batter, pitcher, stack, FanDuel and DraftKings, all the slates, and has projected ownership as well. And Ken, I guess it's a function of the slate size because some of the ownership we've seen on teams over the past couple of slates have been outrageous. But Philly and Minnesota check in at just 55% cumulative. Philly up to 100% on FanDuel, which is insane for an 11-game slate. But I guess those two teams will be the most popular. But they're not so popular in the sense that if you stack them, you're up against a large portion of the field. But what are your thoughts on their ownership on both sites and how you're approaching them tonight, but also chalk stacks in general?
All year I've been playing the non-chalk stack, so I've been actually fading them, and I'll probably look to do something again today. So I don't think I'll be playing any Philadelphia. It paid off yesterday because they only scored 1 run, but obviously the hard part is you've got to pick the right stack that scores well. So I think they're just like way too high owned. In the higher dollar, they'll probably be even a bit more popular because they project so well. So I won't be playing much Philadelphia tonight.
Yeah, and again, this is a question we have to answer a lot because people, OccupyFantasy.com members, people who watch the stream will say, well, you have Philadelphia ranked number 1. And for good reason, right? They're playing in course against a mediocre pitcher. But they'll say to us, and I'll get this question a lot. It's like, okay, well, they were ranked number 1. Why didn't you play them? And to me, it's basically justifying that the ownership is high for a reason, right? But in baseball, when stacks are the most popular, as we've seen the research, whether it's large field, small field, right, Ken, you get so much more leverage by just automatically fading that top-owned team, as long as they're like a tier above the rest, that it's worth fading them, even if they're the number 1 team in the model, because again, our model can only project so much in a sport with as much variance as baseball, and you're better off taking the chance on fading that leverage, no matter how scary it feels, right?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely scary, but baseball is a great sport to kind of fade because it is like you said, so variant. So even if Philadelphia is this high owned, their probably chances of being the highest scoring lineup is maybe 15-20%. So there's an 80% chance they don't get there, and I'd rather I'll take those odds and look somewhere else tonight. So I think it's a good slate to kind of mix and match. There are a lot of teams on the slate, so like I said earlier, if I'm making 3, 4, 5 lineups, I'm definitely using lots of stacks. So 5 lineups, 5 different stacks on DraftKings, and then probably up to 8 to 10 teams on FanDuel as well.
Yeah, for sure. T Nasty has a question in the chat. Got a ticket for the Grand Slam tonight. I believe that's the $44 GPP with the 4x4 stack. That's two stacks, four players from each team. Would that be good for that type of tournament? And I think in general, Ken, I'm curious to get your thoughts here for a large contest like that. We generally see for these large slates with 10 or more games that a 4-3-1 is more optimal because there's a higher chance of some one-off hitter getting there, and you don't want to constrict yourself to just two different stacks. I would say 4-3-1, but I'm curious to get your thoughts.
That's a strong option. I mean, 4-4 is also a good option because there's always the chance that two teams just score extremely well, and you definitely want four guys who play on teams that score like 10 runs, right?
Yep.
So 4-3-1 is a good one if if there's a one off or even something to kind of fit in pitching like that. That's what I would look towards. I usually 4-4, but if there's a pitcher you want to pay up for, then use a cheaper one off. So that's definitely a strong option as well.
Yeah, and that one pitcher who we'll talk about here in a second is probably Corbin Burns, who you see on the screen here because he ranks so highly tonight. We'll talk about him in a second. The Prince asks in the chat, is stacking still the way to take down a GPP? Yep, pretty much that's not going to change unless the game of baseball somehow changes, but stacking is how you want to take down a GPP. It's less things you need to get right to win. Great question for you here, Ken. Matt says, any particular small field contest on DraftKings you guys like to target? I personally play the 250, which I know is out of a lot of people's bankrolls, but that's a great contest because it is a 4-max. But Ken, for any smaller bankrolls, any tournaments you see on DraftKings that fit the small field criteria?
Sure. So for contests, actually, I prefer FanDuel just because I guess they're a smaller site, so they have smaller contests, and DraftKings usually have these larger contests. So what I do is I don't really join anything early, and I like to see if like your contest at 250, if they fill up by 3 or 4 hours before lock, then usually you'll get even smaller contests of that similar payout structure. But you'll instead of 400 entries, you'll get like 100 entries. So I'm looking out for those contests. There's usually like a $75 3-max that's right around 100 people, so I'm playing those. And then for even smaller bankrolls, I mean, there's some $50 and $27 that stay under 100 entries, and then smaller, 12, 5, $3, and contests. If you type in the DK search bar, definitely a good contest to target as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're looking over on FanDuel, like the Prince asked in the chat, then the 100-player leagues are always what we're going to recommend. But that same strategy Ken was just talking about, where you look for later filling contests that are smaller in general, less than 200 entrants. Usually 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern is about the time you can start looking for those. So that's definitely the way to go there. So, all right, let's talk about tonight's slate, Ken. Corbin Burns. I'm going to open the pitcher model really quickly because 10-5 on DraftKings, 10-8 on FanDuel. I think this is the highest OF index we've seen for a pitcher so far this year. For those who don't know, OF index is our proprietary metric that ranks pitchers and batters for MLB DFS. Anything over 17 is considered elite. Anything over 20 is outrageous, and he's at 24 tonight. What are you looking at for Burns? Is he the type of guy, because he's a pitcher, Ken, that you're looking to play in as many lineups as possible? And his Ks per any pitch projection is 1.51, so I'm curious to get your thoughts on his props.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy to have a 24 OF index, and Garrett Cole's not on this slate, but he's around 20. Both guys are good plays, I guess, if you're playing like a turbo slate. But Corbin Burns on FanDuel is pricing's a bit softer on FanDuel, so I'm definitely doing everything I can to try to pay up for him, because you only get one pitcher. That's kind of the spot you have to nail. So I like the floor there. And then on DraftKings, I mean, do as much as you can to try to fit him in there as well, because he just projects so well. And I checked his strikeout prop; it's 8.5. So what I projected using the model, we've got 1.5 Ks an inning pitch. If you give him six innings, maybe 7 innings, then you probably get somewhere around 8.5 as well. So I mean, he's the safest floor play, definitely. But I think the projection's right on. So I didn't take an over and under. But someone else I will talk about is Garrett Cole, that we project him really well too. And his prop is only 6.5, so I did take an over on strikeouts for Garrett Cole tonight.
So let's see here. So what you see on screen here is the AccuProp radar, which allows you to look at legal sportsbooks in your state, type in a player, team, or game, and compare all of the odds, all of the props for that player at these different sportsbooks. So for one, if Burns is projected for 8.5, you like him for 8.5. That means On average, this dude's striking out 8 batters, and that's a player you can get into your lineup. And I think it's pretty easy with 11 games on the slate to be able to get him into your lineup tonight. So definitely a guy you want to get in. Whereas Garrett Cole, that line is down to 7.5. And yeah, Ken, it looks like you can get some plus odds on DraftKings and FanDuel. Were you able to get plus odds at the book you booked it?
Yeah, I got some 6.5, and I definitely recommend some 7.5 at plus odds as well. Because I mean, I think it's probably good projection somewhere between 8 or 9 for Garrett Cole tonight.
Interesting. Very easy. Okay, so we talked about these stacks that aren't Philadelphia that are the highest popularity stacks. Who are some of these other stacks that you're looking at? I'm gonna bring up the stack dashboard one more time here, and if we sort by OF index, Philly, Colorado, Coors Field near the top of the slate. No surprise when it's cold weather around the country and the game that's playing at high altitude gives a huge weather boost. We've seen that game total move up a half a run since lines have opened. But then after that, we have some teams that people generally aren't excited to play. So, Ken, who are you looking to stack that is under the radar that is not on the Coors Field game?
Sure. So I think for tonight's slate, I'll treat it as Philadelphia and Colorado. They'll get a good chunk of the ownership. And then in our stack dashboard, I like to lump it. So kind of if teams have similar OF index. So I think Philly and Colorado are your two top stacks. And then after you have a bunch of teams in the 40 range for OF index. So I like to lump those teams together and then pick from there. And I mean, like Texas is a good one. I mean, Garver, Semien, and Seager. I also like to think what positions they play. So sometimes it's hard to find good hitting second basemen, catchers, shortstops. So those are valuable positions that can get you there with Texas. Another team I've looked at is Atlanta. Atlanta is super cheap on DraftKings for some reason, and they've got a good team total boost. So I like that as well. So Atlanta is definitely one I consider. And I mean, I guess Baltimore, it's hard to say because they're not the best team, but they've got a decent team total move as well. And they're hitting against a soft throwing lefty, and so the model likes them. So Baltimore, a cheap team definitely to consider as well to help you pay up for Corbin Burns.
And again, this is not Baltimore bias. I know we're from Maryland. I'm from Maryland, and Moose, the creator of the model, is from Maryland originally. So we're not injecting any Baltimore bias here. But the fact that they have the 6th highest OF index, the 6th highest isolated power projection, 3rd highest weighted on base, but just the 23rd ranked team total, we're projecting some regression. I know they haven't scored well to start the year, but we're projecting some regression. Betting markers see it a little bit. Team total's up a tiny bit. But to me, at 20% total ownership, and the nice thing about them is if you just look at the positions, you're looking at Chirinos, catcher. The lineup is not out as of yet, but all these guys are sub 4K that you can play, which allows you to easily fit in Corbin Burns and maybe some of these other top pitchers on the slate too. So on a slate where I think most people might play Burns and then a lower tier pitcher, Ken, if you play 2 stud pitchers on DraftKings, that's a little bit of a different lineup construction that the field probably won't do.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. As well, I think Musgrove is probably the kind of second stud pitcher that a lot of people will go to. I mean, I also looked at Robbie Ray, Cy Young winner. We definitely have stacked against him a lot, but he strikes a lot of guys out. So paying up for Robbie Ray and Corbin Burns in the same lineup is definitely going to be a different kind of construction tonight.
All right, so talk to me about that really quickly because we joke about it in the Daily Plug, which is live, by the way, now. Links in the description, but Chris and Troy have put together the Daily Plug for tonight's slate, top plays, lineup strategies, everything you need. And we always joke about Robbie Ray stacking against him. He literally won the Cy Young last year. But what do you make of these types of slates, Ken, when you see a top-tier pitcher like Robbie Ray, who ranks 2nd in the model, versus a top stack that ranks 3rd in the model, or the stack dashboard? What is that telling you, and how do you try to approach that slate when you see that?
I mean, it tells me that I think both sides can be good plays, and I'm willing to play both. It also kind of gives you a good feeling that, I mean, I guess you're able to hedge it. So either, Texas kind of plays well, or Robbie Ray plays well as well. So you definitely have something going in one of your lineups. I mean, it's so hard for baseball where the odds are that all you need is kind of one lineup to get there, because it's a long shot for any lineup to really get to the top. So if you have one lineup with Texas, if they played well, that they'll get there. And if Robbie Ray play well, then you've got a lot of points for your other lineups. So you kind of just need one lineup to get yourself up to the top. So I'm willing to play both Ray and Texas.
Yeah, in different lineups, obviously, but that's a big reason why, and we get this question often too, is if you're playing multiple lineups in baseball, do you rotate pitchers? Do you rotate stacks? And our consensus, all of our research has told us this as well, so we have definitive data that stacking a different team in each lineup is 100% the way to go in MLB DFS. So if you're playing 4 lineups, you're playing 3 lineups, you want a different primary stack in all 3 of those lineups. And Ken, you've been doing that as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, always something I've changed this year. You guys did, some good small field research, so different stacks and try to expand my pitcher pool as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, a couple more questions here. Matt in the chat says, on a large slate, are you more worried about stacking bats against a top pitcher as compared to like a 6-game slate where that pitcher gets inflated ownership and you get extra leverage by stacking against them? Do you shy away from it anymore, Ken, on a larger slate?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely merit to that because it's such a large slate where it doesn't necessarily mean that you're kind of playing like a straight up hedge because there's so many other teams on the slate. But I think Texas they rank well, and like I said about the kind of positional eligibility that. So it's a team I'm looking towards too. If they didn't rank well, like I wouldn't just kind of blindly stack against Ray. Like I don't think anyone's gonna stack Pittsburgh tonight against Burns. So definitely stuff to consider on a larger slate. But Texas ranks well enough where it's just a strong stack overall on the slate.
Right. If this was like a 4-game slate, maybe you stack Pittsburgh just for the pure game theory and leverage, right? But 11 games, 22 teams to pick from, no reason to just stack against a top pitcher. But if you have a good reason, like the Texas ranking, that's certainly when you would want to do something like that. T Nasty asks, how do you guys feel about Milwaukee? Ken, I know you said you have 100 stacks tonight. Is Milwaukee one of them?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to play some Milwaukee. Adames is always a guy who ranks well, and he's one of the top shortstops tonight. And they're a cheaper team, especially on FanDuel. They're cheap as well, so definitely look towards Milwaukee. They also have it's an easy matchup against Pittsburgh, and our ownership doesn't really have them as a kind of like a popular team. So I think they should be a bit popular than what they're projected to be tonight. So I think they should be more popular, but I'm definitely playing Milwaukee tonight.
So there you go. There's your answer there at T Nasty. All right, let's go back to pitcher really quickly. And again, it's 5:48. We're here until 6 p.m. Eastern. If you guys like what you see, make sure you subscribe to the channel, get notified when we go live. Upload any new videos, doing these videos pretty much every single day for MLB, breaking down the slate. And make sure you check out the content at OccupyFantasy.com, all the tools that you need to help you build profitable lineups and make profitable sports bets. All right, so we got the slam dunk pick, Corbin Burns, top of the model, easy play. If we're dropping down some, Ken, and let's say on DraftKings, our second pitcher, who are these guys below, 8K that we can feel somewhat confident about slotting in, whether it's strikeout upside or just pure value?
I mean, honestly, none of them, but it's a tough slate. I think you pay up for Corbin Burns. I think you really try to get in a Robbie Ray or Joe Musgrove on DraftKings. And if you're going down, I actually went all the way down to Chris Archer is someone I'm looking at who's got a strong K projection, and he's only 5,400. So really, you don't need a lot of points, and I feel much better playing him than if I were to play a 6 or 7K guy who kind of projects the same around Chris Archer there. So what do you think there?
It just feels like every time I play Archer, it's, it feels like the ceiling is like 9.5 points. But I got to agree with you. 5,400, pretty good matchup here. And again, if we pull up the model here really quickly, he ranks 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, 9th on a slate with 22 pitchers. That's incredibly solid. Has the money line moving in his favor. The opposing team total has dropped. He does have that strikeout threshold you mentioned that we look for of 1 per inning. So, I mean, and he's got the weather in his favor, 8% boost. You got to like it. And again, at 5,400, and especially if you're playing small field, it's not like you need a ton, right? If he gets 10 points, you can definitely still cash. And I've done it, and we've seen wins in tournaments on DraftKings. Now FanDuel is not going to happen, but on DraftKings, your second pitcher gets 10 points at a cheap price. That's enough to get you a win, right?
Yeah, it's definitely enough. There's literally proof of it a couple of days ago when Mackenzie Gore was 5K and won someone 100K at the top prize there. So it's definitely been done before, and Archer can get there tonight.
Yeah, and that was a huge GPP. It wasn't just a small field run, right? So yeah, that was a prime example of being able to take down a tournament with a cheap pitcher who doesn't even do that well. Doug in the chat, what's up, Doug? Says if a player is rated high in the model but low owned, are they cash viable? I think so. And let me just pull up the batting tab here. And if we type in the low risk filter, click yes, we're going to see a bunch of guys that are sub 1%, 2%, right? So it's definitely fine because, and Ken, I know you don't play a ton of cash, right? But you're really just trying to maximize at bats, jam pitchers in there. And as long as you get those guys in there, I think you'll be fine because I admittedly haven't played a ton of cash in MLB, but I don't think it's as ownership dependent as other sports.
Yeah, I would agree there. It's not like NBA where 80% to one guy, but I mean, if you figure out there's going to be 3 or 4 guys that kind of stand out, so maybe get those guys in, and then probably target Corbin Burns, probably a good target, and then some of the top of the order guys like Luis Arias on the Twins is only 2,500 leadoff, so definitely get some of those guys in as well.
Absolutely. Good call. All right. Remy says, if I'm running 3 to 6 different lineups in a big 20 max, is it more optimal to have 3 to 6 different primary 5-man stacks or different 5-man stack for every lineup? Yeah, so Remy, we actually just talked about this. In case you missed it, rewind it back. We talked about that conversation. But yeah, you want a different 5-man primary stack for every single lineup you're doing if you're making a handful of lineups. Now, if you're entering 150 lineups, you don't want 150 different 5-man stacks. But, 3 to 6 lineups, small field type stuff, 20 max. Yeah, you want a different primary stack in each lineup. So on that note, Ken, right? Let's say you have 4 lineups and you're stacking. Let me just bring up the stack dashboard here really quickly. You're stacking. You're not playing Philly. You're playing Colorado, Texas, Baltimore, Oakland. Those are the next 4 ranking teams, right? Are you ever using any of those teams as a secondary stack as well? Or are you using completely different teams as your secondary stacks to complement those primary stacks?
Yeah, I mean that's I guess the $1 million question. I actually went through something like that where I had a Texas stack, and then I was like, do I want even more Texas? I think on a larger slate, I mean, it's a good idea to go with 5 or 6 primary stacks because, like I said earlier, all you kind of need is the one team to get there, and then it's a good idea to mix and match. I think the fewer lineups, you kind of want to have more teams, so you don't want to really stack together. But if you have like 4 or 5 or 6 lineups, like I'm willing to have maybe 2 or 3 teams as a main stack, and then use them as a secondary stack as well. But I always I think expanding to more teams is a good idea in MLB.
Yeah, and it seems like you might be spreading yourself too thin, but that's actually not the case just in the way that this sport works. And I'm more likely to play a team as a secondary stack as well, in addition to a primary stack, if they're not super unpopular and the betting market's somewhat agreed. Like Texas, Baltimore tonight, team totals in the bottom 10th percentile. Probably not going to play them as a secondary stack because the model's the only one that's looking at them that way. But if it's a middle of the pack stack, as far as team total goes, higher team total but lower ownership, I'll definitely be more likely to play those guys as a secondary stack as well. T Nasty says, lineup builder question. Would you set the randomizer on high for a 3 max 2,000 entry contest? Yeah, basically any high risk contest, I'm setting the randomizer on high just because I don't want to get, especially for baseball, I don't want to get similar types of lineups built together. So, yeah, I pretty much always set it on high unless I'm doing something very specific. Ken, I don't know if you have any experience doing that with the lineup builder.
Yeah, I like the high randomizer because if you set it on low, you kind of get similar stacks. So I like to set it on high just to see what is possible.
And we'll be doing a live stream with Jack, creator of the lineup builder. I don't know if it'll be this week, but definitely next week, if not, where it's probably going to be an hour live stream before lock, where we take your questions and we go through the lineup builder completely, build lineups. I'll show you how I build small field lineups using the builder, how Jack builds the 150 lineups using the builder. It's going to be great, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And another reason just to subscribe to the channel. All right, Ken, 6 minutes left. Let's transition to some prop bets. If you guys have any more questions about tonight's slate from a DFS perspective, let us know. Ken, you've been crushing the props so far this year. Anything else stand out for you? And I guess, first of all, have you only been betting K props, or have you been betting any types of total bases or home run type props either?
I've been mainly, I use the model to bet K props. So just K props, but I also do bet a bunch of other MLB stuff where it's like run scored in first inning, where I'm actually a big better of that. Where I think you'll see a lot of info where no run scored in the first inning is kind of a popular bet among kind of medium people like that, which actually creates value on the over. So I'm definitely always betting yes for a run to be scored in the first.
Are you betting them blindly, or you just have a system where if it hits a certain number, you're betting it?
If you think about it, where it kind of correlates to total. So if you got a higher total, then and you get good odds. I mean, anything in kind of like the plus 100s or plus 105s, if you have a total of 8 or 9, is probably a good bet. And then if a total of 7 or 7.5, and you get plus 120, plus 125s for runs to be scored, that's something I'm looking. So there is a system that you kind of know what the true odds are of a run being scored in the first.
That makes sense. Do you have any that you've bet tonight? I want to take a look in the prop radar just to see if anything sticks out.
Oh, that's tough. But one that I will look at, it's the Webb and Scherzer game. So I don't have any, but that's definitely one if I look at. If you can get a good line on that, I mean, I've seen some 125s, 130s. The total is maybe 6.5 or 7. So the Mets play the Giants in the doubleheader. So I mean, plus 125 or plus 130. If you can get a run score in the first, then that's definitely probably a good bet there.
And honestly, probably not a prop that you want to sweat the game, because if you're trying to get a run against one of those guys, it's not something that's a fun bet. That's a bet that you make because there's value, and then you check this ticket to see if it cashes after the first inning is over. Let's see here. All right, any other K props that you've bet so far? I want to take a look at in the prop radar.
Yeah, I bet. I mentioned the Garrett Cole over. I also took the opposing under, so I took the Tigers Tyler Alexander under. That's something I bet under 4.5. I also took some under 3.5 at plus odds. I mean, soft throwing lefty against a good Yankees lineup, and I think the model adjusted. So once the Yankees lineup came out, that the model will actually adjust for the lineup. So that's something, if you're going to use the model for a K projection, kind of get confirmed lineups, and so that's a good way to attack it as well.
Yeah, because we see the lines move, right? Once lineups come out, we see the prop odds move as well, right? So if you can get ahead of that somehow, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, with legal sports books popping up, there a bunch of options. Like if you use our OccuProp kind of radar there, that you get a bunch of options, and so some slow moving lines, so you can definitely still catch on to some value once lineups come out.
I mean, I'm looking here, right? So this is I typed in Tyler Alexander's name, and we're looking at the books that we're partnered with: DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars, PointsBet, MGM, and the lines are so wide ranging where you can get under minus 138, under 4.5 minus 138 at FanDuel. That under is minus 169 at PointsBet. Or at Caesars, you can actually get 3.5 plus 130. So I mean, you can get under 4.5 minus 138, under 3.5 plus 130. What do you remember what you got under 3.5 at? What odds?
Yeah, I mean, under 3.5, I got a plus 131, and 4.5, I got a minus 130. So I did pretty well there. I mean, there's so many options where like you can even kind of arb these props.
Yeah.
So bet one side and bet the other. So it's definitely something to look into.
Absolutely. All right, guys, it's 5:58. We have 2 minutes left. Any rapid fire questions, get them into the chat now. If you missed the live stream or you have questions that you think about after it's over, hop in our Discord server, click the join button below this video. That gets your little YouTube membership, allows you to get the emojis in the chat when we do live streams, but more importantly, get you access to our Discord server, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. Chat it up with other members of the OccupyFantasy.com community. Pick the brains of our staff members. Sweat the games with us. It's huge. Join the OccupyFantasy.com Discord. And the daily plug is up, OccupyFantasy.com. Let me bring it up really quickly here. This gives the top plays, lineup strategies, really just a 5 to 10 minute read that our writers Chris and Troy put together. Gets you prepared for the slate, everything you need to build lineups in 5 to 10 minutes. And then the Occupy model, which we've shown on screen this entire time, ranks every batter. For those of you who want to dive a little deeper yourselves, build multiple lineups, use that. The lineup builder, Occupy Fantasy, it's what I use to build my lineups. It allows you to build up to 300 lineups now using optimal lineup criteria. Tons of custom stacking rules. It's huge. OccupyFantasy.com/lineup builder to learn more. And the prop radar, which we showed on screen. If you're in a legal sports betting state, make sure you use our links to get deposit bonuses and free bets. They're massive here in the United States. Ken, I know you're up there in Canada. You don't get to take advantage of all these amazing offers. Does it make you a little bit jealous that you're living up there and you can't take advantage of these?
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous. I can't wait for them to get up here because it's probably something I'll be doing like 24/7 is probably going around sportsbook to sportsbook.
When did they have a time frame yet on when it's coming to BC?
I think they're trying to see how Ontario does, so they'll see how much money they'll make, which will be a lot in the first month. So I think won't be too long.
Absolutely. So, all right, that'll do it for the show. We appreciate y'all listening as well. You can follow Ken on Twitter at SwaglordKen. Do you even tweet ever?
No, but I like tweets. So if you check my like tweets, it's like cool sports stuff. So check those out, I guess.
Or Ken's in the Discord under St. Kenneth. So, yeah, come check him out in there as well. I'm Brian Jester at Brian Jester FF. We're at Occupy Fantasy again. We appreciate you listening, and good luck on tonight's MLB DFS slate.